Hey guys, Venthyr here, and welcome to another Shadowlands beta video. So in this video, I'm finally going to go over the Venthyr Covenant Soulbinds. Even though they were the first one that was actually added to Alpha, it ended up being the last one I went over, but let's just go ahead and get to it. So the first one, Nadia the Mistblade, is the first Soulbind that you'll get. And then the first choice you'll have to make is either between Agent of Chaos, which gives Doors of Shadows a disorient at the target location for 6 seconds, or Door of Shadows will increase your movement speed by 40% and it decays over 6 seconds. And of course, the actual choice you'll have to make is whether you want the Potency Conduit or the Endurance Conduit. And so then after that, you get a Finesse Conduit, and then you get the Friends in Low Places, where you loot 20% more infused rubies, and dredgers throughout the Revendreth will offer you an expanded selection of goods. And then you'll choose again whether you want finesse, potency, or endurance, and depending on that choice, you'll get exacting preparation if you choose the finesse one. And this will increase the benefits of well-fed flask and weapon enchants by 15%. Now I feel like this one can be pretty strong. One of the only times where it might be good to actually go for the finesse route rather than the potency or endurance route, just because 15% when you from your food, flask, and weapon enchant can be pretty big. And then the other one is just duration of incoming interrupt, snare, and root effects are reduced by 25%. And then the first enemy you damage in combat is marked as your adversary, which will cause you to do 4% more damage, and they will deal 2% less damage. You can only have one adversary at a time, and it's the first enemy that you mark in combat. So yeah, this could be decent for tank, especially because it's right there at the endurance conduit slot. Excuse me. So you could get a nice tank one, and then another one that gives you a little bit of, less damage. So that could be a decent route that you want to take. You also get a 4% damage buff, so that'd be decent in single target. And then you get the potency conduit for free, and then the last trait is Thrill Seeker. So while in combat, you'll gain a stack of Thrill Seeker every 2 seconds, or 4 stacks when you kill an enemy. And then when you get to 40 stacks, it'll be consumed, and it speeds up everything by 20% for 10 seconds. But it'll decay rapidly while you're not in combat. So this is decent while you're like out in the world, or if you're in a boss fight, because you'll be able to get to those stacks, and then yeah, you'll be able to keep up that Thrill Seeker for the full duration. So yeah, you won't be losing the stacks in combat either. So now we go to Theodore the Mad Duke. Um, Now this is the only soulbind in this covenant that doesn't have their final trait, but the final trait could be pretty decent, but I don't think it's really going to at least change how the one trait isn't going to change the entire covenant or soulbind. Like you would still choose this soulbind based on everything else, not just this final trait. So that's why I thought it was still okay to go ahead and do this video. But the first choice you'll have to make is whether Door of Shadows will free you from roots and snares, or it'll have 2 charges, but then the cooldown is reduced or increased by 30 seconds. So now this is a little bit different. This was nerfed, I think, twice. So originally, Door of Shadows would be instant cast, but then the cooldown would be increased by 30 seconds. Now it's just you have 2 charges, and honestly, this one might be better now than the instant cast because it's usually a minute cooldown. So getting 2 of those basically within a minute, well, a minute and a half, is pretty good. So, like, if you want more with your Door of Shadows, then that's a good one, I think. But also being able to just free you from stuff can help out a lot, especially because this has a potency slot in it. So, yeah. Oh yeah, and I forgot to mention that the Nadia one, because it has the 3, potency conduits, it's probably more like DPS focused, but it doesn't mean that you can't get stuff out of tanks, depending on your tank conduits, because you can still get 2 endurance conduits and a potency conduit. So that really just depends on the tank and also the healer, because they can benefit from all of that. But if you're a DPS, then regardless of the other roles, if you're a DPS, you're going to most likely want the first Soulbind rather than the other two. Okay, so moving on, after you make those decisions, you get a finesse, and then you have another decision to make between three different traits, but really three different conduits. So if you go this route, you'll get the endurance conduit, and then its refined palette, where the effects of combat potions last 20 to 100% longer. So this is a bit of an RNG one, but it also, it shows how the Revendreth Covenant, well, they have things that are like, affect your potions and food and stuff like that. So like your battle things that you always go to raid prepared for, food, flasks, potions, these affect those in some way. Nadia will increase the effectiveness by those things, and Theatar will increase the duration of the combat potions. So getting up to 100% can be pretty huge, even if it is just RNG. But it's going to be at least a minimum, of 20%. So I think that's pretty decent. And then you have Soothing Shade, so your spells and abilities will have a chance to call Tubbins and Gubbins to your side for 12 seconds. And if you stand in the shaded area, it'll grant you 10% mastery. And then finally, the other one is Grant a Shield that absorbs damage to allies who aid you in healing or beneficial magic. So basically, if you're being healed or getting some sort of benefit from another player, then they will get a shield that absorbs. You don't get the shield, it's for the people that are healing you. And it's only once every 20 seconds. And then when you make that decision, you get the endurance slot for free, and then the last, like non-combat choices you'll have to make. Life of the party, where during the Ember Court, your guests will gain additional happiness for each event completed, and when the court concludes, the effects of decrees bestowed upon you are increased. So obviously, this only makes sense to you if you are, if you've done the Ember Court, the special, Revendreth unique feature. And then Theater will cover the cost of your transmogrification, so that could be pretty nice if you want to save some little bit of money there if you transmog a lot. And then Theater will send you an assortment of herbs when you complete activities that contribute to your Great Vault. So just, free herbs basically. And again, they don't have the last trait. I'm not really sure what it would be, but yeah, it's not in yet. And finally, we have General Draven. So you have to choose between earning anima, it will improve your armor's durability, or when you leave a rest area, it increases your mounted speed by 10% and your out of combat generation by 100%. It lasts 10 minutes, and when you complete a world quest, and it'll refresh the duration. So for general questing, this is pretty good. Obviously, you could save some money by improving, picking this so you don't have to repair as often, but I would probably just go ahead and go with the mounted speed and combat regeneration because it's going to make questing easier and faster. And then you get a conduit slot, and then the next choice will be while you're above 80%, you gain 1% strength every 3 seconds and stacks up to 5 times. But if you fall below 50%, then it's lost. So it's your primary stat. So since I'm a Death Knight, it's strength. So you can get up to 5% extra of your main stat, but you got to stay above 80%. Now, for a DPS or a healer, this isn't that bad. I feel like General Draven is more of the tank-focused one because of the, multiple. You can get 3 endurance conduit slots here if you pick the right path, and a potency one. But doesn't mean that, it won't be good for other classes, but most likely tank. So as a tank, keeping that is going to be harder, but I think it could still be useful. But if you're going to tank, you're probably going to take the middle row anyway, or the right row. And this one makes it so that successfully interrupting an enemy or dispelling an ally increases your critical strike chance. So this one's also good for a healer because they're more likely to dispel. But anybody besides a healer, I think that's just there so that healers can do it because some healers don't have interrupts, but all melee, or non-healer classes have interrupts. So this just allows healers to be able to get the benefit as well. And then we finally have hold your ground, where standing still for at least 4 seconds grants you 10% increased stamina and 4% increased healing done. And then it persists for 4 seconds after you start moving. So it's something that you can keep up for a decent amount of time. Um, so this is good for tank or healer because obviously you're going to want that increased stamina, but also the healing done is going to be really good. Especially good for blood decays. I imagine this would be pretty strong, to where even though there's the endurance conduit, I would probably take this one, and there's a potency conduit slot there as well, because you can get that 10% increased stamina, and even if you have to move, like if you only have to move a little bit, you can just move, and then now you still have that increased stamina, and then when you stand still for 4 seconds again, you'll get it back. And likewise as a healer, healers usually don't move that much compared to other roles, so you stand still, and now you have 4% increased healing done. So I think this is a really good trait. One of the stronger in general soulbind traits. And then you'll get a potency conduit, and then you make your last choice, where either door shadows will grant you a shield that absorbs damage, and it lasts for 8 seconds, and that'll give you a finesse slot, or when a nearby ally gains temporary increased movement speed, you also will gain the benefit up to 30%, and that will give you a endurance slot. And I've seen a lot of just movement increasing speed for like other or under other covenants, like the Night Fae Covenant. So this could actually be pretty good because there's very likely that somebody's going to be getting some sort of movement speed increase, and you can get that plus a nice endurance conduit. And then finally, the last one is it's for your class specific covenant ability. So for Death Knight, they have Swarming Mist, and it'll grant you 10% versatility, and then 4% versatility up to 4 nearby allies, which lasts 10 seconds. So, and again, Swarming Mist is pretty decent, I think, for tank because it gives you increase your dodge chance, and then it also will give you some runic powers. So I still haven't decided yet where my Death Knight would be, but I definitely think it's decent for tank, and then you get some versatility on top of that. So that's why I really think that this is definitely focused for tanks because of the conduit slots, a couple of the traits, and then the final one really, at least for Death Knights. Of course, it's going to be different depending on what class you are, but yeah, it's pretty good. So again, Nadia, the first one, is probably more DPS focused, but could also work for any of the other roles depending on your class and your conduit selection. Theotor is the more, like utility based, because he's got all the finesse ones, a lot of ones that will not really contribute to combat, um, shields and stuff. Kind of good for open world, although it does, again, with the utility based increases to door shadows. It's just more utility based, I think. Not necessarily one role or another, but if you want more utility. And then finally, General Draven, I think, is more tank focused with, somewhat healer focused as well, because you could still get, 2 potency slots and then this hold your ground trait for healing. So that's all for my little explanation and like kind of going more in depth on the Soulbinds and their traits for the Venthyr and like which roles that I think each one really goes towards. So if you liked the video, please give a like and subscribe for future videos. And as always, thanks for watching.